At the beginning of the retreat, when I first arrived, that is, I spoke a bit about what it means to be a yogi, the meaning of the word. We come here and take on the work of a yogi, and a yogi literally means someone who possesses the effort to cultivate the mind and knowledge by means of meditation. We mentioned that this effort has 3 levels. The initial effort to begin the practice, to come to a retreat, to begin the practice in the various ways that we do, and here it's to come to the retreat and practice. And the next level of effort is stepped up effort, or boosted. We boost up our effort to overcome the obstacles that start to occur. And after boosting up the effort comes to a 3rd level, which is progressive effort that keeps on increasing gradually, bit by bit, until the yogi reaches their final goal, the end of the practice. So that is the literal meaning of the word yogi. In practical terms, the yogi makes a concerted effort, or strenuous effort, to note every arising object, beginning with rising and falling, and by doing that, developing momentary concentration, and also developing knowledge stage by stage. The yogi always needs to have alert, decisive effort, and needs to keep on trying again and again. And this is what we call courageous effort. When we develop effort like this within ourselves, we come to possess it. And if we possess a little bit of effort, of this type of courageous effort, then we become qualified as a yogi to that extent. When we possess more of this effort, we become a more qualified yogi. And when we possess this effort fully, then we become a fully qualified yogi. So with regard to the work that a yogi does, the Buddha talked about escape routes, the escape routes, R-O-U-T-E-S, is my pronunciation, routes or routes of the yogi, and the obstacles to these escape routes. So in Pali, these are called niyyāna and āvaraṇa, these escape routes and the obstacles to them. So I'm going to talk about how many ways the yogi can escape and how many obstacles there are to these ways. The first one, the niyyāna, means escape route. So from where it is not mentioned in the text. But when we say escape, it implies that there is some type of, that there is liberation from bondage. And that bondage or confinement that we can escape from is the bondage of suffering, the cycle of suffering. So we should understand this term of niyyāna or escape route to mean that type of escape from the bondage of suffering. And the nearest type of bondage that humans experience is always present in us. And that is the bondage that is related to sense objects. The things that we like, that we get delighted by. We like to see, we like to hear, smell, taste, touch, these sense objects. There are certain types of sense objects that delight us. So we like these things, we delight in them, and we want better and better sights, sounds, tastes, smells, and touch experiences. We also don't want to let them go. We think that these things are good, so we want to experience sights or sounds or smells, tastes, and touch, and immediately craving arises for the things that we experience. And this is a type of bondage that we can't really, most of the time, unless we do something like meditate, we cannot get free of. And when we're bound by our sense desires, it's like being a slave. Because, for example, when we desire a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, what do? We go and get it. It's like the desire for us propels us to get that thing. Many of our actions are like that. So when we give our mind free rein, we let ourselves give in to desires instead of seeing what do we really need, for example. If we give in to enjoying the different objects of the senses, we get some pleasure from that. We get human pleasure from doing that. But for example, when ants, they find some honey, and then they go to the honey, and they eventually sink in it if they can get inside the honey jar. So, like that, the ants die in the honey that they go after. And us too, these pleasures that we experience can be fatal. So we should understand that the greatest kind of bondage that we face is the phenomena of delighting in or enjoying sense and craving sense pleasures. Or we can just say simply sense desire. And yeah, go ahead. We have to struggle to free ourselves from that. And the thing we use to struggle and become free is called niyyāna in Pali. So the other word that I use, the opposite, niyyāna āvaraṇa, is a word made up of niyyāna, which you know the meaning now, and āvaraṇa, which is the opposite of that. So niyyāna being the thing we use to escape from bondage, āvaraṇa is something that prevents that escape. It blocks the escape. So it's a hindrance or obstacle. So that is the literal meaning of niyyāna āvaraṇa or āvaraṇa. So there are 8 kinds of niyyāna and 8 kinds of āvaraṇa. So the 8 niyyāna are first of all the English word, okay, which is either escape or renunciation is another word for nekkhamma. I guess Pali should go first. So the second one is abhyavada, which is not feeling angry or dejected. The third is aloka sanya, which is to look at a light, or in Vipassana it means to observe the objects, to note and know the objects so that the object becomes distinct. Also it means looking at a light also. To look at a light. Did you say that? Light. Yeah. And the fourth is avikepha, not being scattered. The fifth is dhamma vavatana. That's the word dhamma, and then V-A-V-A-T-T-H-A, long A, N-A. And that means to know or being able to distinguish between wholesomeness and unwholesomeness, between kusala and akusala. And the sixth is niyyāna, which means knowing psychophysical phenomena as such, as mind and matter, and knowing how they are related as cause and effect. The seventh is pamojja, P-A-M-O-J-J-A, which means delight, gladness, satisfaction. And the eighth is kusala dhamma, or wholesomeness, wholesome dhammas, blameless. The 8 kinds of obstacles, niyyāna, āvaraṇa, are kama, chanda, which is delighting in and enjoying and clinging to, craving, sense desires. Number 2 is vyāvāra, anger and dejection. The third is tīna-middha, sloth, torpor, and lack of mental energy. The fourth is uddhacca, restlessness. Fifth is vicikiccha, doubt. The sixth is avijja, ignorance, or knowing in the wrong way. The seventh is arati, A-R-A-T-I, displeasure. And the eighth is akusala dhamma, unwholesome, all blameworthy dhammas. So now you know the full list of 8 pairs, and now I'm going to talk about the first pair, which is nekkhamma and kama chanda. So nekkhamma has about 5 meanings, and it's first defined as the Pali word pabajja, which I'll say what that means. It's also defined as first jhana. It can also mean nibbāna, vipassana, and all wholesome dhammas. And so, in terms of the practice, I'll explain these. Nekkhamma, first of all, means pabajja, which we translate it as, that word is usually translated as renunciation in English. And that means, it means to be a monk or a nun or a hermit or a yogi. But that is a very, very simple meaning for the word pabajja. So when we look at the etymology of the word, it's made up of 2 parts. And the first part is the prefix, which is pa, P-A. And the second part is vajja, V-A-J-J-A. So pa has the meaning of putting aside. It means to put aside all worldly affairs. So everything. We put aside our household, we put aside our relationship, we put aside our business, all the different worldly affairs. We put them aside. And for how long? Well, when we do the practice for a defined period of time, then we put them aside for that week or that 10 days, those however long we have, we put our worldly affairs aside for that period of time. 1 week, 10 days, 2 weeks, 1 month, etc. And the word vajja comes from the verb to go. So it means to go and live in a different way, to take on a different appearance. So where do we go and live in this different way? We go to a place for intensively extinguishing the defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion, or raga, dosa, and moha. And such a place, we would call it a meditation center. We come to this the place that is for doing that. So we come here with the objective of putting out, extinguishing the mental defilements that cause suffering. And the manner in which we put out the kilesas is not an ordinary extinguishing, but intensive. We work intensively. So this word pabajja means to go to a place that is for intensively extinguishing the heat of the defilements, and in that place living in a different way or taking on a different appearance. Mental defilements or kilesas arise in connection with the objects that we experience. When we experience a desirable object, there bursts out the flame of lust or raga, desire. And it starts out small, and then it gains momentum, it burns more and more, and finally it burns quite a lot. It sort of uncontrollably, so that it can't be put out. When we encounter something that is dissatisfying, then the fire of hatred starts to burn, and it gains momentum and can go out of control, leading to wrong actions. Further, there is confusion. The mind can't decide about something. It's not clear. It's confused. It doesn't see clearly what is true and what is false, what is correct and what is not correct. The mind is wavering and unclear. And these types of defilements are always arising in human beings due to causes, when there are causes for them to arise. When we give way to these defilements, then we commit wrong actions, and that causes others to suffer. And the doer also defiles themselves and gets only bad results for the wrong action, and therefore the doer also suffers. The mental defilements, therefore, of greed or hatred or delusion, these are the root cause of suffering that beings experience. And if beings are suffering, it is because these defilements are at the root. So, therefore, it's important to eliminate the cause of our suffering. All beings despise suffering. They want happiness. So, since we despise suffering, we should work to eliminate its cause. It's very important to do so. If we think about what happens when we have a fire in our neighborhood, what do? Or in our house, we grab the fire extinguisher, we get whatever firefighting equipment we have in our home, and if we can't put out the fire, then we get out, we call the fire department. And we take a lot of concern regarding fires that can be seen, physical fire. But with regard to the fires within us, the fires of mental defilements that always burn, people don't pay much attention. And if they do pay some attention, they're very slow to act. There's this or that reason why they can't take care of it at the moment. The defilements beginning with greed, hatred, and delusion cause suffering. Just like a fire burns us when it makes us, can char something when it burns, so too the defilements cause us suffering as they occur, and they also cause us suffering in the future. So we should extinguish them as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. If we remain enjoying sense desires without doing anything to eliminate desire for them, it's like playing with fire. And if we play with fire, a person who does that doesn't realize at first how hot it is. Only when they get tired out, then they realize it's very hot. So it is something that we should try to put out, the heat of the defilements, we should put them out. And, yeah, go ahead. What is the method for putting them out? The method to put out the mental defilements is the practice of satipatthana vipassana that we are doing, or, in other words, it is the practice, the three trainings of sila, morality, samadhi, concentration, and panya, wisdom. To put out the fire of the mental defilements, we need to come to a place for practicing the method intensively. as a yogi. If we just leave our affairs hanging on, continue to be involved in them, we won't have the time to practice fully. So we need to put our affairs aside for the period of practice in order to practice fully. And this is what the meaning of nekkhamma is. So with that objective, we come to practice as a yogi and take on the life of a yogi. But we also have to, in order to achieve our objective of extinguishing the kilesas, we have to employ the practice as well as taking on the robes of a nun or taking on the robes of a monk or looking like a yogi. If a person practices to achieve the objective, it is sure that the gross, medium, and refined levels of sense desire, they are sure to die out. And then a person will be a renunciate or yogi, not only in appearance, but in practice. So it's necessary to not only take on the appearance, but also to take on the practice in order to have nekkhamma, or this renunciation. So as we practice, we put the mind on our body, and we try to steadfastly observe the presently arising objects as they appear without any break. We need the quality of absorption in order to focus on the objects. And we have to aim the mind and focus and observe effectively. So it's aiming and observing precisely. And when the yogi observes many, many times, she or he gradually becomes free of the obstacle, in particular, the obstacle of sense desire. So becoming free of that obstacle, the mind becomes clear. The mind becomes knowing. And at that point, there's delight, satisfaction, which is piti in Pali, joy. So the mind becomes joyous, happy, stable, and peaceful. During the practice, when the yogi reaches the stage called samasana niyyāna, then vipassana absorption or vipassana jhana arises. And that has 5 factors to it, which is the aiming factor of vitakka, and then the rubbing factor of vichara, and then piti or joy, and sukha or happiness, and ekaggata, which is one-pointedness. When the first jhana arises, there's the quality of becoming free of the pull of sense desires or sense objects. And for that reason, first jhana is also called nekkhamma, or escape, because it has the quality of escaping from the pull of sense desires. In practical terms, when the yogis do sitting meditation now, they focus the mind on the abdomen and on the main object of observation of the rising and the falling. And there's the quality of sending the mind to the object and also aiming the mind so that the mind goes directly to the object. The aiming factor is called vitakka in Pali, and it also is a jhanic factor that focuses the mind. When we observe, having aimed and focused on the mind, it's as though the mind comes to rub against the object. And we know what that object is because of how the mind is Another way to say it is that the mind is sustained on the object. It's like it rubs against it. And at that time, the noting is effective. And this rubbing factor or sustaining factor is called vichara, which is also a jhanic factor. So when the application of the mind on the object is accurate, time and again, the mind is aimed and focused with the method that we have learned. So the mind gets to the object, goes straight to the object. Then there's satisfaction. The yogi becomes satisfied because the noting has become accurate. And not only is the noting accurate, but one noting and the next become contiguous. There's not a gap in between. The more and more accurate the noting is, the more delight and joy and satisfaction arise. It doesn't seem like it was before. The practice is no longer like it was before. And that satisfaction is, as we've heard, it is piti. And also, if the yogi has reached the stage of samasana niyyāna, the yogi knows true nature. It knows the individual characteristic of the object, such as heat or hardness, etc. The yogi also knows the common characteristic that of being impermanent, unsatisfactory, and being mere phenomena without a self. So at this stage, the yogi becomes quite satisfied. And if the yogi also goes beyond unpleasant sensations to see how they go away, then he or she becomes very satisfied. And when the yogi knows like this, moment by moment, the mind is delighted, joyous, and satisfied, and also becomes happy. And that happiness is called sukha. At this time, both the mind and the body are calm. And there is momentary concentration, kanika samadhi, that arises moment by moment, unifying the mind on the object. I just want to explain when we say unifying, the concentration unifies the mind on the object, because there is consciousness and there are mind states that arise together with the mind, such as joy, such as happiness. They arise together with the mind. And so when these are unified, that's what we mean by saying the mind becomes unified. The mind together with the other mind states that occur with it. So if first jhana that has just been described, these 5 factors, vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata, if first jhana arises like that, then the yogi will surely be free of sense objects or sense desire. They won't feel bound by sense objects or sense desire. So this is why first jhana is also called nekkhamma. When sense desire has no opportunity to arise, then there will be no craving at that time, no thirst for some type of sense object. So it has died down in those moments of practice. So having come to a place for extinguishing the kilesas and practicing, when sense desire dies down like that with the achievement of first jhana, then this is also called, because sense desire, extinguishing that also extinguishes craving or tanha. And the literal meaning of nibbana is the extinction of craving. So for this reason, vipassana jhana is also called nibbana, because it is the momentary extinguishment of craving. So there are many, when vipassana knowledge arises, the yogi comes to know about mental and physical phenomena, how they are related as cause and effect, how those mental and physical phenomena, which are related as cause and effect, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and have no inherent self. When the object, when the yogi, when there's the vipassana knowledge that something is impermanent, then sense desire does not arise, because sense desire can only happen when things are seen as permanent. And in addition, there's no pride or mana. So also, when the unsatisfactory nature of the object is apparent, then the mind is further free of, also becomes free of sense desire or greed. And knowing the way in which phenomena are related, occur according to their own nature, the yogi lets go of the belief that there is a self, that there's an ego, that mind is a self, or matter is a self, or that they contain a self. This type of belief is eliminated in the moment of practice. So, therefore, when vipassana knowledge arises, there aren't any more defilements, in particular kama chanda, sense desire. And as long as the continuum of vipassana consciousness is occurring, there won't be defilements. And this is just wholesome mind states that are occurring again and again. And this is also the last meaning of nekama. So all these are aspects of nekama that the yogis experience in their practice. The act of going forth from their home life, putting aside their worldly matters with a wholesome objective, going and staying as a yogi or a monastic at a meditation center in order to put out the heat of the kilesas intensively. And also gaining first jhana, whether we gain it through samatha practice or through vipassana practice. When a person gains first jhana, they are free of craving. So this also is, even though we don't intend to achieve nibbāna when we do samatha practice, it still is considered nibbāna on a temporary level because of the extinction of craving when we gain first samatha jhana.
C'était donc là toutes les significations du mot pali nekama. Vous devez persévérer dans votre effort. Puissiez-vous tous réussir à éliminer de votre esprit ces pollutions et donc vous libérer de la souffrance.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So all these meanings that I've described of nekama can become apparent in the yogi's practice, and they are simply the means for deliverance, the means for escape from the cycle of suffering. So may you all realize the end of the cycle of suffering as soon as possible through your efforts in the practice.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.